Hey, welcome back to Photography for the Rest of Us, a place for people who love photography. My name is Carrie, and today we're going to learn how to take moody photos in camera. Hey you guys, welcome back. I am so excited to get out today and go on a little nature walk before winter hits. It's definitely getting a little colder, but it's warm and sunny, as you can tell today. And so we are out, Taylor and I, my lovely husband, are out on a walk with the dogs. And I thought, I'm gonna take some pictures, so I might as well bring you guys along and talk to you guys about how I do that. So today I'm going to take some moody nature photos, but all of these techniques absolutely can be used for portraiture. In fact, I'm going to use my lovely model here for a couple of shots just to show you what's happening. And then him and I are gonna go for a little walk, and he's going to take some cell phone pictures and I'm gonna take some moody pictures at the same time so that you can see what camera settings you need to create that. Okay, so first let's talk about what moody photos are. Now, for a lot of people, moody just means like your subject looks moody or angry or sad. For some people, it's an editing style. For some people, it's all in-camera settings. I'm kind of the opinion that it's all of those things, right? Like sometimes you edit a little moody, sometimes your subject looks a little moody, especially if you're taking pictures of teenagers. Ha ha ha, I can say that, I have one. Sometimes it's the way that the light falls. And I personally shoot with the light, right? Like all of my photos are based on seeing the light and watching the light. And that's what we're focused on in November, is talking about light. So this is another application for that. Now, most of us, when we get started in manual mode, are shooting in evaluative or matrix metering. Now, if you've taken or watched If you've taken classes from me or watched them on YouTube, you know that I start everybody out with matrix or evaluative metering. And that is because while you're learning all your settings and the exposure triangle and stuff, I'm not trying to add to your pile of things to remember. But once you're comfortable in manual mode, playing with your metering modes, which is what we're gonna do today, such as evaluative and metering, or spot, or center weighted, or all of these other options, can open up a world of new possibilities for you. So the first thing we're gonna do is talk about what evaluative metering is versus spot metering, which is what I actually shoot with most of the time. Evaluative metering is when your camera looks at the whole frame and gives you an average, right? And depending on the manufacturer, sometimes it's evaluative, sometimes it's matrix, sometimes they call it something else. But basically the logo looks something like this in most cameras. And like I said, we're just trying to get the whole image, right? And the camera says, okay, this is the average, and this will give you an average exposure. Now, once we're shooting in manual and we're really getting into our art of photography, we don't want average anymore, right? We want amazing and awesome and incredible. And one of the ways that a lot of people get that is by paying attention to the light and shooting with spot metering. So the difference in spot metering is that you are actually picking the individual spots on your in your frame of where you want to be exposed properly. So if you look at my face right now, I have a lot of shadow on this side, right? And a lot of brightness on this side. If I am going to use spot metering, which I'm going to use on my lovely model here in a second, I want to expose for either the highlights on this side of my face, or the shadows on this side of my face, or really whatever is important, right? But for moody images, we're focusing on the highlights. So let me show you an example of that. So I'm gonna take a shot of Taylor, and I am on evaluative metering. So this means it's looking at the whole scene, right? Everything around him. My settings, let's see, right now are, if you turn a little bit, this way, sorry. I'm gonna go over to the other side of him because I want a more dramatic explanation for you guys. So I'll move you guys around too. All right, there we go. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is what it looks like with evaluative metering. This is the basic, okay, we're gonna look at everything on our screen. So if I want a moodier image, like this is a fine exposure. There's nothing wrong with evaluative or matrix metering. Like, it's great. But if I want to create kind of a moodier feel, especially when we're in such direct sunlight like we are today, it's like 3:30 in the afternoon right now. So it's not quite golden hour yet. The sun isn't completely above us, but it's definitely bright and there's pretty harsh shadows. So this is a great time to get those moody images. So I'm going to use spot metering now. And what I'm going to do is put my focal point, which I shoot with a manual focus point selection. If you don't know what that is, check out my 10-step video on shooting in manual. I'm going to put the link right here and I'll put it in the description below as well. And I talk about that. I absolutely recommend you choosing your focal point. So what I'm going to do is, as I'm choosing that focal point, that's actually where I'm spot metering from as well. So I'm going to move that focus point to the to the darkest point of the image. Let's do darkest first. To the darkest point in the image, okay? I'm going to get my meter reading, and then I'm going to move my focus point to what I actually want to focus on, which is his eyeball, right? So let's do that. All right, so the darkest part of the image right now is probably his cheekbone that's in the shadow. And my camera says for that to be correct, I'm at ISO 100, f5, and shutter speed 100. So now I'm moving my focus point back to his eyeball. All right, and this is the shot I get. Wow, that looks terrible, Carrie. Why would you want us to spot meter if I'm gonna get shots like this when where I was before looked great, right? Yes, I get it. I understand that that's what it seems right now. But the thing is have you guys ever heard about exposing for the highlights, right? So what exposing for the highlights means is you want to make sure that your highlights are properly exposed in any image that you're taking and let the shadows just kind of fall away. Now, I will say that you have to pay attention with that, because I see a lot of people exposing for the sun or for the sky and just letting their subjects be completely like silhouetted in black. And if you're not trying to have silhouetted subjects, you can lose a lot of information that way. So check out the video on off-camera flash that I did recently, because that's how you cope with that, where you expose for the sky, but you add light in for your subject. In this case, what I want to do is make sure my subject is in the light. So when people are talking about exposing for your highlights, what they're talking about is they want you to expose in such a way that your subject is in the light in some way, and then your eye gets drawn specifically to them. So let's take a shot like that. What I'm gonna do is put my focus point on probably his cheekbone, the brightest point of his cheekbone. This last shot I took, put it right here. Now I'm gonna put it here, all right? And then I'll move my focus point after I have my settings up to his eye, so everything's nice and crisp for a portrait. And I'll take a shot and let's see what the difference, how that looks. All right, so metering for his cheekbone. Ooh, that says that my exposure should be ISO 100, f5, and 1/1250th of a second. 1/1250th of a second. I know math. 1, 2, 3. All right, now that's the shot I get from that. So do you see the difference in these 3 images and how moody, I have created that look, and we haven't changed where we're standing. You guys can see it's a very well lit spot, but it looks like he's in a very moody situation. And the higher the contrast is on your subject, the more like dramatic that mood is going to look. So what Taylor and I are gonna do is I'm going to walk around. There's like giant birds attacking us. Taylor and I are gonna walk around. We're gonna go for a walk, and I am going to shoot some nature shots. I really enjoy doing macro photography, especially nature macro photography. I think it's kind of like a stress reliever for me. So I'm gonna take some nature shots, and he's gonna take pictures of the same thing I'm taking photos of with his cell phone, because his cell phone is going to expose like your camera would on auto, or like you would using a matrix metering, or similar to a matrix metering, so that you guys can see the difference in these shots. Now, stick around. After I show you those, I wanna explain the how, all right? How does this work? Or the why? Why does this work? The why does this work this way? So let's go take some shots and then come on back And while you're looking at our beautiful photos that we've taken, make sure to hit that like button and the subscribe bell because, well, I like it when you do that. It makes me happy. So, all right, I'll see you guys in a second. Let's go take some shots. All right, so I feel like I have to say a few things if you stuck with that. One, I have some inability to take cell phone photos. I have been a professional photographer for years. I like to think that I am pretty good, and cell phone photos, I'm like, I don't know what's happening. So lovely cell phone photography. I was not trying to make it look even worse so that my photos look even better, I promise. All right, so I promised you some information as to why this is happening. So the reason that getting that moody, dramatic look that you're looking for with spot metering works, especially in lighting situations like this where there's a lot of contrast, is exactly that. It's that we're playing up to the dynamic range of your camera. So our eyes, right, can see a dynamic range of like this. And a dynamic range is the brightest brights and the darkest darks that you can see and like your brain can understand. Your camera also has a dynamic range, right? And depending on how high level and how ridiculously expensive your camera was, there are ones out there that are like the cost of a house, and they have a pretty decent dynamic range. Though to my knowledge, there hasn't been any that can actually see exactly what a human eyeball can see. But most like consumer grade cameras have a much smaller dynamic range than your eyeball, which means in most cases it's fine. But when you're in really high contrast situations, your camera struggles. So if you expose for those highlights, there's no way that it can see both those highlights and those shadows at the same time. So it just lets those shadows fall away, and that's how you get that moody feel. Now, I wanna make note of a couple things. First, if you noticed in the photos of my lovely husband, Taylor, right there, there's shadows in his eyes and that stuff. I was just showing you guys an example. That is not necessarily how I would take his portrait at that moment in time. So like, don't get me on me on that. I wanted to just show you guys nature photography, but I needed to show you an example. So none of the mean comments below about that. Also, because you guys stuck around so long, as I was taking pictures, I was thinking about it, and I decided that I want to give you guys a little bit of a bonus, like fun thing you can do with this technique. So I was exposing for the highlights, right, which are great. And the example I gave you showed that exposing for the shadows, maybe not what we want to do. But that is not always the case, and that's the really cool thing about the art of photography, is like every rule has a counter rule that it says, no, don't listen to that rule, listen to the other rule, right? Like we can do whatever we want with these tools as soon as we figure out like how they work. So I want to show you a little trick on exposing for the shadows. And again, this absolutely works with people. In fact, if your people are backlit, similar to the way I am now, this is a really great technique that's a little more subtle than what I'm about to do, but I want to show you something fun. Exposing for the shadows, I am going to use this lovely leaf as my model, and I am going to hold it up to the sun. Now, if you guys have never done sun flares, and I don't mean, oh, I'm shooting wide open 1.8 sun flares where it's just blurry sun behind you, like what it is in the video right now for me. I mean those really cool sun flares where it looks like a starburst. This is, I guess, two tips in one. This is how you create that effect. So I'm going to up my aperture up into about f14, 16. I'm actually on f16, but normally most lenses you want to go to around more than 12. Usually 14 to 16 and up will create this effect, but play with your lens because they're all a little bit different. But basically the moral of the story is a high aperture, all right? So because it's a high aperture, I'm not getting as much light in, which means I might have to bump my ISO a little bit, or I might have to adjust my shutter speed depending on what I'm doing. I'll tell you guys where my settings are. But what I'm gonna do is hold my leaf up to the sun, and I'm gonna expose for the leaf, all right? So looking through my lens, it's gonna be really bright because the sun is there, but I'm gonna try and block the sun as much as I can with this leaf, and there's a little hole in it. I don't know if you can see it on the video. There's a little hole on the leaf, and I'm gonna put the sun right in that hole, and I'm gonna take a picture and let's see what it looks like. All right, so I'm exposing for my leaf with the sun covered because it's easier for my eyeballs to see. All right, and I'm making it in focus, and then I'm gonna put the sun peeking through the hole in the leaf. Let's see what we got. Nice. I could even make it peak a little bit less and get a little bit less of a flare. Let's see. In focus. Any day camera. There we go. All right, see? Fun, right? So you can do this, you can use both techniques separately or together, but the point is that I was exposing for the leaf, which is why the leaf looks nice, right? It's still orange and glowy, even though it's not a particularly pretty leaf all by itself. I don't mean it leaf, it's okay, you did a good job. But it looks glowy and orange and fall-like, and you don't have to just use it for leaves, that's just what I'm, my example. But I'm exposing for the shadows. So you could do the same thing with a person and expose for the shadows and get that light behind them. Actually, husband, would you like to demonstrate with us? And the dogs. All right, just stand like right there. Okay, so I'm gonna take a shot of Taylor with that sun flare like I was showing you, exposing for the shadows so that he's more properly exposed, but I get that fun technique that I just used with the leaf, just so that you guys can see that. I'm focusing on him and spot metering on him, so I can just spot meter on his eyeballs because he's in the shadow because the sun is behind his head. And then I'm just gonna kind of let the sun peek out from behind his head just a little bit to get that flare, all right? I gotta back up though. There we go. All right, so my settings right now are ISO 1600, f16, and 1/80th of a second. My autofocus is having a moment. 1, 2, 3. There you go. Nice, fun little sun flare on his face. Now, as lovely and wonderful as my dear husband is, now imagine that effect with a beautiful maternity photo and the sun peeking out from her belly, or a beautiful person in a big flowy dress like a lot of you guys I know like to shoot. I love you, honey, you did a good job. So, to wrap up, you can create moody images using spot metering instead of evaluative or matrix metering because it gives you the control to expose for the highlights or the shadows or specifically your subject, depending on what is important at that moment in the image. Keep in mind that most of the time when you're using a technique like this, especially in really high contrast situations, you want to make sure your subject is in the light that you are exposing for in some way. If you took a shot of me right now seeing this hot spot on the side of my face and exposed for that, and then focused on my face, you would see my ear and then a lot of shadow. And in some cases that might be a good look, but that's probably not what you're going for if you're taking portraits. The same goes if you're taking pictures of bugs or leaves or whatever. So have a great rest of your week, and keep looking for more videos on shooting light. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't already, please like and subscribe and notification bell, and leave a comment for me because I like it when you guys leave comments, and you guys don't always leave comments. So even if you just tell me what snack you're eating while you watch this video, because I know we're all COVID quarantined. I know that we're all snacking. So, all right, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.